37 up and functioning turbines, they say. But we know what a wind farm should look like, but not like this, sadly.
This is really, truly, truly heartbreaking, Chamberlain. Truly heartbreaking.
This is what a wind farm should look like.
Yeah, this is what it should look like. The turbine should be turning. You should see, you know, those fan, the wind mill, turning the blades here. Thank you. I'm just wondering what it is that, you know, what exactly could be stalling the project. It's such a noble project, something has already started, something that ideally, it shouldn't be rocket science, honestly. It should not
it's an
be
abandoned infrastructure.
And now it is heartbreaking. The reason why I'm struggling to speak, Chamberlain, is because it is a heartbreaking site. Ideally, this should be an excursion site. This should be something that we come to learn from. And when you think of how much this contract was awarded for, it was awarded in pounds, 4.5 million pounds. You know, that's a lot of money if you convert it into Nigerian naira of today. And then later on, we understand that the Ministry of Works decided to take it on in 2017. Still, it's not clear whether the job was finished or was it finished, and then people began to vandalize it. It's really unclear, but if this is the situation, it's certainly not serving the purpose it should serve, because when you look at it, for many, as far as the eyes can see, the stretches and stretches of land, it means that there will be plenty of wind, especially when you're looking at a place in Katsina, in the northern part of Nigeria, where you do get a lot of wind and the plains are just flat ground. It's ideal for this sort of construction, and we will be able to harness the free energy of the wind. But this is what we have, a project which we have started and which we have abandoned.
And it was supposed to be a renewable energy project.
Yeah, yes, a project which we're making nothing out of. It is a real disgrace, a real embarrassment, a real shame. This is not usually the feeling we get when we talk about, when we show these visuals, you know, Chamberlain. It is usually quite soothing.
I know.
Really lovely to see. We're talking about the plains, we're talking about the sites. If it will be any comfort, let's look at the grass on the ground. I don't know if that will comfort you, but it's struggling to comfort me this morning, because this is not really what we should be seeing as a country. It goes to show that we still have a lot to do, you know, to get our country back on track. Ayo.
You know, when we talk about these things, Mark, the first question you want to ask yourself is the patriotic mindset of whoever it is that came up with the idea and the processes that have gone into it. Yes, you were right. The figure, actually, I'm looking at the website now of the ECOWAS Observatory for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. The figure quoted is 18,500,000 euro for this particular project that's right in our face. And according to information available on this same page, it's talking about a company that was selected to get this job done. In fact, there's an additional amount of money that was voted to it by the federal government. Almost £1 billion was also voted subsequently. Yes, Mark, Chamberlain, you're right. The project started in 2005 under the governorship of late former President Yar'Adua. A good number of questions should be asked by so many other people right this very minute. You know, the potential of this is something you also see in Saudi Arabia. As we speak, there is sitting in the Saudi Arabia deserts the world's largest solar power plant. It is not something that is impossible to do. It is something we can do. And we know that the nature in Saudi Arabia is close to what we will have in northern Nigeria as well, with this large expanse of land. And so for some visionary to see what we can do with this and come up with this, it's amazing. And we're still talking about this now. It is heartbreaking. Situate this, Mark, with what we have in Ajaokuta, the Ajaokuta steel plant that's been there for decades, since the 80s. And we have gone back and forth on this project, and whoever it is, whatever it is still stalling in, and it looks like it's a project that is never going to get off the ground. So the question is, why? What is it that is wrong or right with us that needs to get this kind of thing done. Just imagine this happening the way it should happen, and imagine how many lives would have been saved, how many jobs would have been made, and how many businesses would have been created as a result of this, and how many businesses we would have saved electricity infrastructure costs just from this particular project that we're looking at in our faces. This is not impossible. It is not undoable. So let the power minister or whoever it is that is in charge of this answer the right questions so we can get the answers, and please not abandon this project.
Yeah. And you know, the minister at that time too tweeted severally. You know, one of the tweets, they say, the administration of President Buhari is committed to the completion of abandoned infrastructure projects. The 10 megawatts wind farm project is set for commissioning later this month. That was in March 2021. He said it had up to 37 up and functioning turbines, part of our efforts towards investing in renewable energy. And then this is another tweet where he says he was replying to somebody who was asking him questions, and he did say, well, good afternoon, Mr. Badamasi Saleh. It's been completed and ready for commissioning later this month, inshallah. So there you go. But as we speak, just a simple check shows you several budgetary allocations, no expenditure detail, time, year on year for that particular project. So there are huge questions. All right, so what do we expect today? What's happening today? I know that there are different court cases, different events going to make the rounds, but some of them include this one.
The ECOWAS meeting on activation of regional force to counter terrorism. It'll be interesting to see whether the ECOWAS will be, are they planning to do like group soldiering? We know that there is country cooperation amongst ECOWAS military, the ECOWAS military. If that's what this is about, then we'll find out much later today. If they're thinking up something else, we'll certainly know later today. But we do know that there are problems that are bedeviling the entire ECOWAS region, and only a cooperation like this will be able to solve the problems.
But I know that in spite of the political upheavals in different parts of the ECOWAS, economic West Africa, their military is working together.
Indeed.
They keep trying to do that because they know the implication of not working together.
Indeed.
Because if they don't, these chaps could just come in and overrun several other areas. So they tell us that, look, they're doing what they can professionally as military to make sure we don't drop our guards. Ayo.
Issues also on the bill this morning is Business Morning on Sunrise Daily, highlighting the fact that the Naira has weakened due to strong dollar demands. Find the details of that at 10 o'clock this morning, where we give you Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. In the meantime, here are the papers today. Today is June 27. Here are some of the papers being highlighted for you this morning. We begin with the story on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Out of pocket, high cost of care hits public hospitals, uninsured patients. That story is on page 6. I see some graphics on the front page. Hospitals insist on deposit payment before care. Patients, caregivers stranded over 150% hike in cost amid other issues raised right there on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. The Vanguard has this one as well. Cholera. FG shopping for emergency vaccine as Nigeria records 54 deaths, 1,579 cases in 32 states, according to NCDC. Whole sanitation, contaminated water, reason for spread. Scribe to Sanwo-Olu. Display product essential information. Lagos government directs stores. Details of that story you'll find on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper today. Right under the picture of the front page, protesters want declaration of emergency in Rivers. As Fubara alleges protesters attempt to bomb hotel. Find the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper this morning. The Nigerian Tribune leads with that one. Explosion aimed to justify call for emergency rule in Rivers, ascribed to Governor Fubara. One suspect arrested, receiving treatment. That's according to the police. Details of the story you'll find on page 4 Front page of the Daily Times newspaper. Drop your arms, embrace dialogue. CUAS advises agitators, others. Says it's only in a peaceful atmosphere that the economy of any country could thrive. Details of the story you find on page 2 of the paper this morning. Blueprint newspaper has this one. 432 billion naira fraud. El-Rufai sues Kaduna Assembly, seeks 1 billion naira damages. Once committee report voided. That story is on the front page. It continues on the inside pages of the paper. Nigerian News Direct, 2 weeks ultimatum, clock is ticking. Address our demands. ASU to FG. Consultations to continue across ministries to address education woes. As from the minister, stories on page 3 of the paper this morning. Business Day has this one. Ethiopia, UAE, Turkey strip Nigerians of visa on arrival, e-visa. What does that mean? Details you find on the inside pages of the paper today. Same stories on the front page of the Daily Independent. Rivers crisis, explosion at hotel ploy to foist state of emergency, according to Fubara. Pro-Wiki ex-LG chairman may freeze council's accounts, as from reps. But the lead story of the Daily Independent is Tinubu vows to sustain war against drugs, illicit substances. Drug test kits must for homes, schools, offices, according to Marwa. Details on the inside pages. These are some of the papers we have for you this morning.
For my take this morning, first take this morning is on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. It's the Nigerian Tribune's twist to that story that also quotes the federal government. Over 64 million people suffer from drug use disorders. Whether that is a figure that's about Nigeria, it's actually somewhere at the bottom of the page. Whether that is just for Nigeria or not, I guess we'll wait to see. If you find the details on pages 3 and 15, but it says Tinubu rally support for drug war, assures NDLEA of more help, agencies drug test kits a necessity for every home, school and office. That's what the story is about right there at the bottom of the page. What ticks me here in this story is the fact that these figures are real. Question we should be asking ourselves is, what is the reason why people would rather go for these illicit drugs as opposed to getting the right kind of help? I don't believe that it is, I can't imagine that we can say for a fact that we don't know who these drug barons are. I don't know, but I'm just finding it difficult. The reason is really not far-fetched. These drugs are not cheap. Illicit drugs are not cheap. They are very, very expensive. Not too long ago, we found some information, making the rounds that some vehicle of some official, was used to ferry some loads and loads and loads of these hard drugs on the road, and he had to take other security agencies to arrest that particular vehicle and detain it, and whatever investigation is being carried on now. I guess we'll wait to see. So the question is, it is not that these people are ghosts, and it is our people that are suffering at the end of this. If I don't want to believe that these 64 million people who suffer from drug use disorders are just in Nigeria, as I said. You find the details on the inside pages, but there is a significant number in Nigeria, and that the NDLEA has continued to shout that these things are happening up north and in various other parts of the country. And when we talk about drugs, we are not just talking about the ones that are known. There are others that are being evolved by young people whose future we are literally putting, at stake. I'm hoping that there will be some answers here and some correct collaboration so that these things can be addressed, these issues can be addressed, and please recognize that the future of Nigeria is very, very important here. From time to time we hear people talk about the fact that we need to protect the young people, we need to prepare them for the future. With this kind of vulnerability, my hopes are very dim. Okay.
It's a pain I can feel, Ayo. I mean, when you think of how many children or young people are involved in this, we have to, commend those who are taking up this advocacy very seriously. The advocacy and taking it to schools, taking it to where young people are gathered, you know, or where they are as individuals, to say, look, this is not the way to go. This is a pit that you can fall in, and there might be no way out. You know, the use of hard drugs. I do hope that it's something that we see as an emergency, even though, you know, we say there are so many emergencies before us. But some things, will I say, are more of an emergency than others. There are many fires we need to put out. But when it affects the young people, when it affects the future of our country, then we really know that we need to prioritize that. I think there was a paper I saw that was saying that there are about this is it, the Guardian newspaper is very closely related to it. Northeast, home to over 2 million uneducated children, says UNICEF. I mean, what exactly are we preparing for the future if we leave our young children uneducated? If you were to add that to the number of young people all over the country who are out of school, who have no future, because essentially that's what we're doing. We're depriving them of a future, and we're depriving them of the ability to be meaningful citizens who will contribute meaningfully to the development of our country. And this is already 2 million, which the UNICEF is already enumerating for us. These are emergencies. These are emergencies to keep the ones in school, to ensure that the ones who are out of school, you know, get into school, because this is bordering on the future of Nigeria as a whole. Currently, we're dealing with insecurity, we're dealing with a number of issues, terrorism. They are all closely related to things that we did not do in the past. So if, as much as people invested in the past, well, we're still where we are, how much more now, when we are now having a swelling number or rising number of children who are out of school? It is truly a very worrisome situation, Jimmy.
Well, yeah, but in addition to as if all our worries are over, as if they're not enough, the front page of Leadership also reminds us, because when that announcement came earlier this year about this Oronsayen report, many thought, oh, at last, somebody's finally taking or moving in the direction that at least it will make government, probably for the use front towards nimble, efficient, functional, you know. But look at that. 4 months after, FG Food drags on merger of MDAs. Now, the paper was quick to also remind us that earlier this year, I think in February, the Federal Executive Council had approved that merger when the special advisor to the president read out the firms that were going to be merged. And then they talked about different agencies that were merged, how they were going to be functional. But now, much as they tell us that the civil servants are looking forward to a leaner and more efficient civil service as a result of this merger.
Leaner.
That's, well, in the manner of speaking.
Look, let me tell you what is on the front burner right now. For the federal government, before they do anything with civil servants, they have to first of all address minimum wage. That's they need to. Well, so that has taken a big chunk of the pie. I think the attention, the discussions around minimum wage. It's really interesting to see.
It's not everybody in civil service that is involved in negotiation of minimum wage. There's a tripartite committee that is set up. So that's how government works. They set up committees, do things. If they want to focus on nothing works, nothing will work. Nothing will move forward.
Let us just say that perhaps the spirit is willing, but the
how can it be waiting on first week? As of February, we understand FEC had approved it. And so if FEC had approved it, so what's going on? Some say they're lobbying. Groups that will be merged are lobbying to say, well, don't do this, don't do that. So wasn't it well thought of?
They have come across obstacles that are bigger than them, perhaps. Well, you know, if for a government that truly wills, there's nothing that is bigger than a government that is determined. That's the truth of the matter. All of these things I've just said, I'm just trying to be cynical. Because the truth of the matter is, this is not the first time we have heard this type of things. When the Oronsayen report was actually conceived and eventually produced, people thought, oh, look, government is, yes, they're right on track. Meanwhile, they want to do good for the country, etc. Why couldn't they implement it?
So there you go.
This is where we are.
Big questions for the government. What is going on with the Oronsayen report? 4 months after that announcement, still grappling with stuff. So All right, so there you go. That wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment. Stay on with us.
The future belongs to the dreamers, to the doers, to those who are not afraid of the side hustle. It's for those who are ready to turn their passion into something big. And to help keep you revitalized and inspired, Top Tea is with you every step of the way. You are made for more. Find your inspiration. Top Tea, big round bags of flavor.
Keeping an eye on diseases emerging and re-emerging. Observe the body respond to the miracle of treatment. Watching requirements of medicine modified and the way we look at health evolve.
Bone marrow transplantation is not surgery. I always like to reiterate that. It's actually like transfusing blood into your vein.
Keep pace with new trends and find the answers. See the full picture on Health Matters, because you deserve to know. Investing in the capital market can be tricky as the numbers move in different directions. Sometimes the bull bellows, other times it's the beer that roars. In all of these, an investment decision has to be made. On Capital Market, we help you take the right decision. Join us at 7 p.m. every Saturday, only on Channels Television. Capital Market, investment tips for you.
Big tech wasn't really here. What have they seen in the past 10 years, which is making all of them want to put their HQ here?
If you're a business that sees itself growing global, we'll definitely need some sort of like boosts. We need to tap into those existing networks that these big tech companies do provide.
Is there a downside to big investment in Africa? Okay. It's a tricky question.
We want to be like Amazon, we want to be like Google. Like, this is not, we are not looking to sort of be just another player.
For me, big tech is something highly controversial. I see the value of it, but I also see that Africans should stop playing second fiddle to some of these organizations and have the confidence to start building our own technology.
You've seen how we are using the limited resources we have to solve real problems. They've seen indigenous tech startups achieving things that took them years to figure out.
I've identified certain areas where there are gaps and want to fill those gaps. So we've reached out to some of the best around the world to partner with us to try and ensure that we keep promoting the MSME space, vis-a-vis creating more jobs for the MSME space and widening the scope of support for access to funding and how governance is run all over the world. Every serious-minded country, what they now do is to seek the partnership of the private sector to get things done. So where the public sector is not able to do anything or achieve anything on its own, they dig deep and put a handshake across to the private sector to get things done. So Nigeria is no different from all these nations.
Yeah, welcome back. So yes, we'll be talking about Those and more, we're joined here by Dr. Charles Odii, who is the DG and CEO of SMEDAN. Good morning. Thank you for coming on.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
I know. World MSME Day is today. And, of course, there's a huge focus on Nigeria. But ever since you assumed the office, how's the office been? What's been going on?
So it's been 8 months. And one of the biggest realization is that, government is doing a lot, but the people that government is doing what it's doing for are not aware. So the reality is bridging that gap between government and its audience, making sure that all what government is doing is made available to the people that government is doing it for.
I mean, you were involved in MSME even before you got in here. You were doing several programs, several things before this. What have you noticed as the fundamental difference? Could that be one of them?
So from being in the private sector, it wasn't very glaring. But now being in government is glaring to say, okay, so government is doing this. If we take a look at some of our products or some of the programs, we have something called the One Local Government, One Product program. So where we're supposed to identify one product in each of the 774 local governments for local consumption and also for exports. I didn't know that when I was in the private sector. We have something called the National Business Skills Development Initiative, where you train businesses and you give them empowerment. I didn't know that when I was in the private sector. So a couple of those kind of access, in one word, access, the democratization of access that government has done is not very glaring to a lot of the MSME players.
What would you say is responsible for the disconnect?
So we conducted a town hall, and I was asking, and many of them were like, listen, don't talk to us through the National Television Authority. Don't talk to us through the different mediums you've been talking to us through. Come and talk to us through social media. Come and talk to us through our influencers. Many of our small businesses have associations. They have cooperatives, right? And so what we're trying to do is get the heads of those associations and the heads of those cooperatives in the room, get them to have direct communication with us as the development organization for SMEs in the country, so that they are carried along, and that way they can cascade information to members of their organizations.
Yeah, well, that is what you're doing to bridge it now.
Yes.
I mean, in terms of, but what do you think was responsible for the disconnect in the first place?
The medium of communication. The medium of communication, clearly. So a lot of people have migrated to the traditional forms of communication, to social media, digital media. They're consuming a lot on the go. And so they want us to use platforms like this to also connect to them. Because the majority of our medium businesses, I connected a study, I just wanted to find out, okay, so if you're talking about digital, what about the traditional forms of media? A lot of people watch Sunrise Daily, so thank you for inviting us. And, we're using Sunrise Daily to talk to, especially those at the medium, we're small and medium, and the small is divided into nano and micro. So a couple of the medium guys, a lot of them watch Sunrise Daily. So using these platforms, using digital media, using social media to connect to them, and also their gatekeepers, the influencers, the heads of their BMOs, the head of their cooperatives, make sure that they're all in the room.
Yeah, one would have thought that before now, those people would have been, trying to get a leg in the room in the first instance. I mean, one of the things that media does is that they get a leg in the door for the people. That's what they do. So if they have been there all along and they're saying this is where you should talk to us through, these are our channels of communication, is it that government has shut the door to those people in the past? That's why the messages weren't getting to them? Or there was no real attempt to try and get a leg in the door to government circles to actually know what was going on in certain areas?
Now, so what would have happened in time past was that government has done a lot, and government is actually still engaging these people. But I think that there was a break in the communication, right? So maybe the heads of the BMOs got the information and they didn't cascade as they should. But this administration is being run so that the son of a nobody becomes somebody without knowing anybody. So what is largely responsible for that is using technology to scale. So right now we're using more technology to scale. We're also not neglecting the people that we used to neglect in time past. So if, as the head of a BMO or the head of BMO's business member organization or the head of a cooperative, you want to now, be a gatekeeper and keep that kind of information, we're democratizing that access so that if you do not disseminate as you should, We use technology to use social media, we use digital media. We even use WhatsApp to connect to everyone that we need to connect.
What's changing already from what you can see?
What I can see right now is that before now, I'll give you a story. We had a program ranging up to the matching fund program. We're matching funds with Jai's Bank. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to mention that. And we had to the tune of 612 million. Only 12 entrepreneurs were able to access that money. And the money was at the bank for a long time.
Only 12?
Only 12 entrepreneurs.
612
million. Only 12 entrepreneurs. So there was buckets of problems. The first is the awareness. So when I started to find out, how the small businesses in the ecosystem are aware? Many of them were not aware. And those that were aware, it was easier for the camel to pass through the eye of the needle for them to access the fund. So we were like, let us break it down, right? What do the small businesses need to access this fund? And before long, we started to, so right now, we signed another MOU with another bank to the tune of 5 billion naira. And we've gotten 187 entrepreneurs access that fund. Close to 200 million has been disbursed. It is progress from what used to be 600 million to 12 entrepreneurs. So that's what I'm seeing changing. Financial literacy, the access to the finance for small businesses is being democratized.
So, because I know that there will be a lot of pressure on your office, especially now, considering the economic downturn. Yes. People want to do things. There are several people who think cottage industries, MSMEs will be the huge determining factor, distinguishing factor to us taking the next step economically or not, if it succeeds. So now maybe you should talk a little further now in terms of, there are several funds, we understand. I think FG launched another one. The Ministry of Trade was talking about all of that. That's huge. I think it's about 200 billion?
Yes.
Wow. What's going on with that one?
Yes, so right now we know that in this part of the country, in this part of the world, finance is expensive, also very scarce. So what His Excellency the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had done was to earmark cheap financing for small businesses. So 200 billion, 75 billion of that goes to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, or manufacturers, right? Where they can access as much as £1 billion at a single-digit interest rate. Another 75 billion goes to our small and medium enterprises. And in his magnanimity, the president was gracious to earmark 50 billion in terms of grants to nano businesses. And our classification as SMEDAN, nano businesses are businesses that have less than 3 million naira turnover and less than 3 employees. So, you know, a mom shop, someone doing some business from their kitchen top of their house, the woman at the corner of the street selling something. So those people will get a capital injection in forms of grants to those nano businesses.
How much?
50,000 naira.
50,000 naira.
Yes, 50,000 naira, and this is it's supposed to go to 1 million small businesses. At the last count, about 2 weeks when we sit and we review these things, close to 250,000 nano businesses have gotten these funds. Now, what
250,000,
yes, 250,000 have gotten these funds. And before the end of this month, at least 500,000 of these nano businesses should have gotten this fund. This fund is being disbursed by the Bank of Industry. Because we don't have a financial institution yet at SMEDAN, so the funds are being disbursed through the Bank of Industry. So what is...
You say yes. Is this something you're thinking of?
Yes, so we have actually applied to the Central Bank of Nigeria to get a microfinance license for SMEDAN, so that we can help to coordinate some of these direct developmental finance, but more importantly, we want to set up a digital platform to help our small business, enable the small businesses to it. And we need like a payment gateway, so which is why we had applied for a microfinance bank license.
So what is the plan for, because I like to imagine that if any of those, first of all, the small businesses, if they get those funds, the 50,000, they want to sustain and be in business. Mm-hmm. Does SMEDAN find out or ask questions as to how are we sure this is sustainable? What are you doing to make sure you don't just get it today and you can't come tomorrow, you can't survive, giving advice, all of those scenarios? What do you do? Do you just disburse the funds and that's it?
No. So thank you for that question. So what we've done is we've set up business development service providers. in all the 774 local governments. So what these business development service providers do is they offer consult to these small businesses. Okay. In many cases at no cost. In some cases where they need to incur some cost, the small businesses are regulated to pay a certain amount of money. Now, so what these BDSPs do is that they go in, they advise the small businesses after they before they get the funding and after they get the funding. Before they get the funding in terms of capacity development, right? We train you. We understand where you are. We organize a business clinic. Where are you right now? What will you need this money for, right? And then you get this money. And then afterwards, we also come and monitor where you've been, what impact this money has done. And we're releasing an impact report. I'm hoping that you can invite me again so we can discuss that. But in addition to that, it's not only okay to just release the funds, but what's happening is we need to create a conducive environment for these businesses to thrive. So which is why His Excellency the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, instituted something called the National MSME Council. He chairs it, right? And at the different states, the different state governors are the different chairs of this National Council of SMEs. And what this council is supposed to do is to help to create conducive environment in each of the states. So if there's a problem with a state, with a small business in a state, what happens is that the small business escalates to the commissioner. If the commissioner cannot solve it, it goes to the State Council of SMEs. And at that State Council of SMEs, we try to resolve it. And if they can't resolve it, it goes to the governor. If the governor still hasn't done anything, then the escalation comes to us at the secretariat.
Is that not going to be, I hope it's not a long process?
It's not a long process. It's just to make sure that, it's just to hold accountability at every point in time. And every 2 weeks, I go to His Excellency the Vice President with a report to say, Your Excellency, this is what is happening in Lagos. This is what is happening in Ogun State. This is why we're losing businesses in Kaduna. This is why we're losing businesses in Benue. And this is what we think can be done. And then, at that level, who is the chairman of NEC, who is the chairman of this council, he can make some informed decisions by, just making sure that, a lot of things are sorted.
But some of the challenges that businesses face, and I don't know if the smaller businesses, I think they'll face the same thing. Once just open a little door, government agencies, they will almost harass you out of business. You have to pay this, bring this, all kinds of agencies who are just there. Only sometimes you wonder why. Secondly, sometimes, I don't know if you have this complaint from those businesses, those same government agencies will tell you, if you don't give me this amount, this percentage, look, I'm sorry, you can't get this. Do you get this kind of complaint, and what happens?
Absolutely. So I'm speaking about where we are right now in the FCT. There's an area council called AMAC, right, where we've gotten a lot of complaints that officials come and they say that they are from AMAC and they ask for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. If not, they threaten to close the store. At our town hall meeting, I'd set our small businesses, get the names of the people, because what had happened is we called the head of the area councils in the FCT, and we reported this to say that, listen, this is what's been happening to our small businesses in AMAC. And the head of the area council said, listen, we do not know these people.
Really?
We don't know these people.
Wow.
They've come with fake identities, hoping to tax the small businesses. So when we had that town hall meeting, and we spoke to our small business, and one of the small business owner decided to challenge the officer who has come from AMAC. And before we knew, the guy fled. He ran away.
Wow.
So what has happened is that all these people have just come in the names of this government agency to tax the small businesses. But that's not to say that it doesn't happen. When it happens, that's why we set up the council, so that you escalate. If there's a regulatory problem, we can address it at the state level.
I think, sorry to jump in, I think one of the things that government can do is, whatever processes that businesses need, whether it's small, big, put it on your site. Let everybody know these are the things you need. If anybody's asking you for this, don't give them. It makes life easier for people.
It does.
Businesses.
It does. But again, our small businesses, let's take another instance, Nafdac, for instance. The process to getting a Nafdac registration is less than 100,000 in one of the licenses. But what happens is that our small businesses now employ consultants who charge them close to $1 million to get that license. And then what Nafdac is trying to do, and that's not to say that there's not a lot of backlog, but Nafdac is trying to digitize the processes, because again there are lots of people producing fake products that are affecting, or they're affecting even the bottom line of the revenue of the small businesses that they imitate, but also affecting the health of the people that consume it. So they've tried to digitize that process. What we're doing at SMEDAN is to make sure that we shake hands with Nafdac to make sure that the process is easier, the digitization is easier. Because if you ask people consuming, they'll tell you that, listen, Nafdac is is an issue. But when we sat with the professor, DG of Nafdac, she said, listen, Charles, it's not that Nafdac is an issue. It's that our small businesses are now using consultants, and small businesses are not going through this part. So we're like, okay, let us solve the problem. We will take Nafdac digitization to all of our states. So at our state offices, at the 6 states and the FCT, we'll have Nafdac processes there. So as a small business owner, walk into there. Also, we're setting up labs where Nafdac would certify it. So as a small business owner, you don't even bother yourself with buying the products or buying the machines and buying the lab. Come there and then use the facilities at the lab.
Nafdac really needs to. It's interesting you're given the example of Nafdac, and when you think about what is currently happening in Lagos, even though they say they're still investigating, but there is this talk of people. There's a thread among some people who drank some, contaminated tiger nut drink. Not certified by Nafdac. Yes. And one would say that if the process were easy, if it were a lot easier, perhaps, businesses would be willing, to know that it's not going to take me so long. I don't need a consultant. I can do it myself, and get themselves certified, know what they need to do to keep their environment clean and not kill people. Because right now, people are losing their lives, for things that are totally avoidable. I'm just a little curious as to when you're looking at making the processes easier, is it that you're looking to reduce the number of forms that are filled? Some people don't like forms at all. They will find ways to get around it. Or is it that, precisely what is it? Yesterday I listened to somebody tell me about how she tried to get a SCOMO for, is it an NGO, and she had to travel from Agidingbi to Apapa, from Apapa to Isolo, even though she was meeting help along the way. All of that traveling, I'm just wondering, for something that we just want to make easier for small businesses, if an NGO has to go through that, how much more a business? I
agree. So which is why at all of our offices now, we set up a one-stop shop. So all the things that you need. So first of all, the problem of information. All the things that you need to start scale, you can get it. So I have sister government agencies, NEPC, which is in charge of investment, in charge of exports, NIPC in charge of investment, SON, CAC, these are sister organizations. So all the information from my sister organization are readily available at our state offices. I give an instance, in terms of removing the wait time. So the other is the wait time. Something like CAC, registering a company in Nigeria right now, is less than 48 hours. Right? But in that scenario where an NGO needs to get SCOMO, all the information that she needed, right? Rather than going from one office to another, she can just go to SMEDAN as a one-stop shop and she gets all the information. So we would also encourage the small businesses to visit our offices. In the case where she has gone to these places and she can't get it, then she escalates to, the first point of call is the Ministry of Commerce and Trade in the different states. And if they can't solve it there, then they bring it to the council. Then our job is to make sure that it's easy to run businesses here. It's easy for anyone to start something and make it profitable. Because
what is usually happening, what happens is that I'm looking at the figures. I say we had over 40 million MSMEs registered as at 2017. Yes. Also, the numbers should be way bigger by now.
Yes.
How many of them are still functional even from that 2017 is not something I will know. But if, for instance, you have said that one of the ways you're reaching these people is through social media. I do not know if they are, when you say social media, precisely, is it Twitter, is it Instagram? Where precisely are you?
So we're using Instagram, we're using Twitter, we're using LinkedIn, we're using Facebook to engage all of our community members. And also, we have, if you take an industry like food, right, there's some influencers there, right, people that people listen to. We're engaging them as well. So we're not leaving no stone unturned. We're using every way to reach out to make sure that, we counter fake news, 1, 2, make sure that, everyone is brought abreast with what we're doing. Speaking about the businesses that are operational now, since 2017, our last count showed that we lost some businesses. One due to COVID-19 in 2020, but also because of insecurity, and we're tackling that head on. But, we've started to engage. The IG of Police has given us a couple of ways to circumvent, security, and then we've said to our people, if you see something, say something. You can't suffer in silence. Speak out, so that we can help you. And that's why we're set up as a government agency.
Well, I hope that government has been very aggressive with that, intervention in terms of letting people know what it is to do. Because sometimes people just think it's about starting a business, can be a cooking business, you know, and they think the moment I have a camera, the people know what to do with that one in terms of getting on social media and getting, you know, content produced, etc., etc. But they're not the moment government is about to come in, then they begin to shrink, and, you know, they're a little confused. So would you say that increasingly businesses know what to do to be a little more formal so that they can be recognized by government and also get the help that they need when they need? Absolutely.
So the first level of formalizing your business in Nigeria today is the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, right? Because if you look at us as humans, right, you're only identified when you're registered. Someone can be in a society and just existing, doesn't have BVN, NIN, bank account, we don't know him, right? So to let us know that you are a formalized entity, according to Nigeria's laws, CAC is the first point of contact. And you can register a business in CAC today in less than 48 hours. The reason why a lot of small businesses are shying away, and like I agreed what you say, is that when government gets involved, they feel like, okay, when I register at CAC, I start getting taxed. No. Right now, if you do a revenue of less than 25 million naira, you don't even pay taxes, right? And you don't know these things, but you get incentives. You get incentives in terms of business development services from SMEDAN. You get, in some cases, cheap loans. You get grants. You get common facilities. So right now, we've set up common facilities because we understand that it's very expensive to run a business. So what the government has done is has taken a lot of industrial development centers, mapped it across the country. And what we've done is first of all, we're giving you access to cheap loan. Then you can come into that facility. You don't have to buy. If you're in garments, cotton, like you're talking about, cottage, you don't have to buy the sewing machines. You don't have to maintain the sewing machines. You don't bother yourself about power. You just come here, get loans, go and buy your material, come here, sew it, book a time, book a machine, sew. You can warehouse if you want to, and then distribute it anywhere in Nigeria. You know, at zero cost to the small business.
That is happening already?
It's happening. I would love to invite you to Idu. It's happening here, just behind you, close to the train station.
Nice.
All right.
Ayo has questions for you.
It's actually, I'd like to start from that very last question that you asked, you know, about the fact that they don't get to pay tax when they haven't made up to 25 million naira in a year. But then there is the space of documentation, because that's the only proof that they haven't made up to 25 million naira in a year, leading to the awareness or knowledge of the young people, particularly those in the nano, micro, small and medium enterprises, about business. Is there any kind of business mentoring or business education initiatives for them so that they don't find them, at least they know what to do, and whoever comes, just as you have described, they can tell the person to go, you know, to the next house or something?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question, Ayo. So in terms of business mentoring, we've certified, at our last count, approximately 200 business development service providers, right? And these service providers are the guys who are offering mentorship, offering business advice to our small businesses across the 36 states and the FCT. So on our website, we've identified and we'll let you know who these business service providers are. And in many cases, you don't pay. The small businesses don't pay for these services. The next point of call is our office. We've set up a one-stop shop in all of our state offices where you need all the information that you need. You get them at our state offices. And on a monthly basis, we organize the small business clinic. And it's just set up like a health clinic where you come as a small business, you get diagnosed, we understand what problems that you're faced with, and then we start to give you innovative, meticulously planned out solutions for all of your businesses. In other climes, we have products for cooperatives. So our One Local Government, One Product initiative, for instance, is a product where we give not one-to-one right now, but one-to-many. We solve the problems of businesses in a cooperative. We solve the problems of businesses in a business member organization, where we give them, in many cases, funds, right? 70% of the funds go as loans to the cooperative, and 30% go as grants to the cooperative. And this money is to be used for working capital, to be used for work tools, and for the cooperatives to be able to procure workspaces. And before this money is disbursed, we also do a lot of capacity development trainings for the cooperatives. So for small businesses out there watching this, one of the things I'll say is please identify with a business member organization, identify with a cooperative. So if you actually even miss our intervention as on a one-to-one basis, you can never miss it, as a cooperative, as a member of a cooperative or a member of a business member organization.
Okay, well, quite a lot to unpack in all the things that you're saying, and I have very little time. However, I'll still take you up on this. First of all, what are the top performing MSME sectors in Nigeria? We had the privilege, Channels Television spoke with Alibaba, who I'm sure you know very well, concerning the creative industry. And he mentioned to us that the creative industry alone before the Fashola government ended, was making something in the region of 16 billion naira every weekend in Lagos alone. Cascading that to now will be something in the region of 20 to 25 billion naira every weekend in the city of Lagos alone. And according to him, the Nigeria Economic Summit Group doesn't even capture the creative industry as a significant industry in Nigeria. So I'm just asking you, what are the top MSME sectors in the country that that the people who are in it or who are not even in it or not aware of it can get into, that will be profitable for them?
So as a development organization in Nigeria, we've identified 7 top performing industries. One has to do with the creative industry in terms of cottage, fashion, hides and skin, and leather. And what we've done is we've provided a common facility for small businesses in that sector to actually do a lot of work at a reduced cost. And we've started a campaign which is called Wear Nigeria, for instance. Like what I'm putting on now is made in Nigeria, right? So it's like Wear Nigeria, supporting all those small businesses in that region. The second is the food, fast-moving consumer goods sector. What we've done is we've also set up a lab that will be Nafdac certified in the coming weeks, where small businesses in packaging, in foods can come and use the lab and then almost immediately start to sell. And in that we've teamed it Eat Nigeria, where all these businesses in the horticulture, agriculture, poultry, fishery can actually take advantage of the initiative that was set up in Eat Nigeria so that they can actually produce for local consumption and also for export. The third is Watch and Listen Nigeria. We're watching the numbers in our Nollywood music industry, and we're seeing that is top performing. Our music is being consumed in Nigeria and out of Nigeria, our movies as well. And then we've teamed this Watch and Listen Nigeria. The fourth is our small manufacturing industries, right? Those who are manufacturing cosmetics, those who are manufacturing food, those who are manufacturing household items. So with those we've teamed under Produce Nigeria. And there are 3 others. One is the Visit Nigeria initiative, and the other is the Patronize Nigeria, because our services industry is also very booming. And the numbers that we're seeing is that a lot of small businesses are in the service industry, and then they're doing record numbers. So all of this is marked under the Grow Nigeria initiative. Grow is GROW. G stands for guidance, R stands for resources, O stands for opportunities, and W stands for workforce support. And this is the support that we give small businesses in the MSME ecosystem under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Doris Uzoka-Nite.
John, that one of my colleagues asked you there the other time, talking about perception of government trust. And you also spoke to that once government steps in, people begin to parry. So how are you changing that perspective? Because even as we speak right now, I don't know, I've not gotten on X to see how people are responding to this yet, but how are you planning to change that perception? How are you working with who to change the perception of trusting any government agency such as SMEDAN?
Thank you so much. That's a very, very important question, Ayo. And for us in government, it's one of the things that I've met when I've come in. And so how I'm tackling that head on is, first of all, transparency, using technology to advance many of the work that we're doing, so that like I said earlier, the son of a nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody. You can take advantage of all the programs that we're doing without even knowing, we have this, I know I'm now my party, without having any party, without knowing anybody in government, you can take advantage of all of the things that we're doing. So if you go on our website, all of our programs are there, and then you stand a fair chance of being a participant at the program by just applying online. So for those who do not have access to internet, because we know digital penetration is also very low, we're using their gatekeepers. We're using the cooperatives, which is why we go into a city and we work with the cooperatives, and then we disseminate a lot of information to the cooperatives. And that information can also be vetted online by anyone who just veers to cross-check what it is that the cooperative is saying vis-a-vis what's available on the SMEDAN website. So one is using technologies to scale, and secondly is working with the gatekeepers, working with the people in the rural communities, because one of our mandates at SMEDAN is, in accordance to job creation, is also rural industrialization, poverty elevation, and livelihood enhancement. And we can't be in all the nooks and crannies of Nigeria at the same time. So what we're doing is we're using our stakeholders, leveraging our state offices, but also working with local government chairmen. So we met with the head of all the local government associations in Nigeria. And what we said to them is, please give us a space, first of all, so that small businesses in your local government can come and co-create. But also we want to work with you as the local government chairman to make sure that all the information that we're disseminating at the federal level is also being consumed at the local level. So answering your question in short, we're using technology in one climb, but also we're using the gatekeepers, we're working with cooperatives, we're working with the communities to make sure that no one is left behind and everyone is carried along and can benefit from government programs.
One more thing before we go. I see lots of people also saying, yes, agencies need to publish their requirements so people can know what they need in order to avoid all of those fake people coming to tax them. Then they say it's difficult for small businesses to access loans. That's what I'm reading here. So they want to know, how do they access facilities from SMEDAN?
So accessing facilities from SMEDAN come in two folds. Because, like I was saying to Mokwe, we don't have the bank yet. So what we do, in some climes, we work with the microfinance banks. For the one local government, one product that I was speaking about, we work with the microfinance banks. And that kind of loan is disbursed through the cooperatives and the community heads. So one of the ways that they can access is, please join the cooperative. Join a business member organization. And so when the cooperative access the funds, you can access the funds through the cooperative. So in this one climb, I visited, I don't know if you've been to Mende, the cane village. There's some guys in Mende where they make...
Under the bridge, yeah.
Yes, under the bridge. They make baskets. They make fantastic work, right? So one of the things that we do, we'll fund the cooperative. So if you're a member of that cooperative, you can access that fund. That's in one climb. Other climb, just come to our website, www.smedan.gov.ng, and then you can look at the loan application and see all the programs that are available, and then apply online.
All right. So many rivers to cross, I guess, but of course, journey of, you know what they say, 1,000 miles. Just go with a step, and you surely will get there. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Charles Odii, DG and CEO of SMEDAN. Well, coming up now is Business Morning on Sunrise Daily.
Hello, welcome. Well, it's the last trading week of June, still the last trading week of June. Also, the second quarter winding down, and the first half of 2024. We're expecting earning reports for half year and for second quarter sometime in July. But today, let's get to the top stories that sets your agenda now. With effect from July the 1st, the price verification system portal used by importers for foreign exchange will be discontinued, and that's according to the latest directive at the Central Bank of Nigeria. In a statement released, the financial market regulator says the move follows recent developments in the country's foreign exchange market. This means that importers will no longer need the portal to validate Form M applications, document used to declare the intention to import physical goods. Just last year, the CBN introduced the foreign exchange price verification system portal to enable importers to access Forex and made it mandatory for all Form M requests effective from August 31st, 2023. We'll drill down on how that's going to impact the market. Well, to the FX market now, after breaching the 1,500 Naira psychological level, the Naira weakened more against the dollar, with the NAFM window experiencing scarcity of US dollar. We see weakness there for the closing yesterday, 0.47% down. That's what we have for the NAFEM window at 1,507 naira to the dollar. We also see NAFEX there from 1,492 naira to close at 1,502 naira 43 kobo, also down 0.65%. So we're still seeing weakness right there in the FX market. To the global oil market now, see oil prices slid in early Asian trade today as a surprise build in U.S. stockpiles fueled fears about slow demand. We see Brent crude down marginally 0.07%. $85.19 a barrel, and for the U.S. grade WTI, the cheaper version there, $80.79 a barrel, down 0.14%. To other stories now, capital is the lifeblood of a corporation, and as countries and businesses strive to increase capital flow, conversations about mobilizing private capital is more apparent at this time. This informed the decision of the United States Agency for International Development and Chapel Hill Denham to put together a conference on mobilizing private capital to drive investments into sectors that enhance Nigeria's economic and social development. Take a listen.
Beyond just the function of the national grid, the renewable energy sector is a fertile ground for innovation and entrepreneurship. When I think about the 70% of this population that's under the age of 24 with high unemployment, it is all of you in this sector, in the private sector, that will ensure and create jobs and opportunities.
For us, infrastructure is a key area of the business that we've developed, but our business is really focused on areas that are accretive to Nigeria's economic development. So we build the business around big themes from infrastructure to renewable energy, to providing capital, for sectors that have limited access, to capital, and that includes, everything from, gender to, the creative economy, all of these sectors to venture. We're trying to push to see how we can get more institutional capital into them, and this is how we're going to develop this country.
And now for commodities market update, we have Mr. Bismarck Ruwani, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, joining us via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Good morning, sir. Great to have you. So you might have to unmute. I saw your mouth moving, but I couldn't hear you, Mr. Ruwani. But to the conversation now, we had reports.
I'm now unmuted.
Fantastic. I can hear you loud and clear now. Fantastic. So we had reports of a fire outbreak in a section of the Dangote refinery yesterday, but there's relief now. It was contained. But does it pose any risk to plans for PMS production in July?
No, not at all. I think it was a minor incident which was contained and easily managed, because in the refinery complex, there are all sorts of mitigants that are put in place. So it was immediately contained. There was limited impact, and production has actually commenced again.
All right, so definitely we've seen a relief also on social media. We've seen people talking about let nothing happen to our refinery at this time, but going forward, we've seen issues around supply of crude, to the refineries. Talk to me about what you're seeing right now, in your view. Do we see crude supply, going into the second half of 2024?
Yes, there'll be increased crude supply. Basically, the crude oil market is a very efficient market. You have contracts into forwards, futures, and also long-term commodity contracts. But you must understand that you have multinational oil companies that produce here under the production sharing contracts and under the joint ventures. You have the NNPC portion of production. So basically, what people misunderstand is that the oil companies are obligated, they have their long-term obligations because they paid their operators margin. They produce committed into long-term contracts, and therefore you can buy either directly from wherever they are selling to, or you can also buy from the NMPC. So I think all this talk about sabotage and all of that, I think it's misguided. The truth is that the oil companies have their contracts. The Dangote refinery is efficient and it's going to produce a lot of quality products. And over time, the Dangote refinery will be buying both domestically and internationally, while they'll be serving both the international and regional markets accordingly. So I wouldn't be disturbed about it. Or what the program is that the price of diesel has come down. The Dangote refinery is going to commence immediately, I think now, aviation fuel, which is a big product. The dual purpose kerosene. They're also going to be producing the PMS down the road in July, August. So everything looks good. But the point is that it will be at international price. That's what it is. What the Dangote refinery is offering is quality, quantity, and certainty of product at all the time. So Nigeria, the days of oil, petrol scarcity are over, but there's still some work to be done in terms of looking for the efficient and equivalent price at which it will be sold, both domestically and across the whole of West Africa.
Right. All right, let's look at other issues right there in the FX market. The seculars are back again with CBN discontinuing the price verification system for importers. I remember this move was aimed at curbing malpractices such as over-invoicing of imports and under-invoicing of exports and round-tripping. Is there a risk these might return in full force?
No, there's no risk. The truth is that the moment you reduce the number of bureaucratic bottlenecks in a market, the more efficient the price. The reason why you had this reason for over-invoicing was because there was a big difference between the parallel market rate and the official rate. Then it made sense to over-invoice imports and under-invoice exports. Now that there's no fear of that, because the difference between the parallel market of 1508 and the official market of 1495 is only 10, 15 naira. It's not worth your incentive. There's no incentive in trying to round trip. Therefore, by removing this price verification document, you actually made it easier for people to open LCs and for goods to come into Nigeria. So it's a good move. And what the central bank is saying in so many ways is that there's no incentive for arbitrage as long as the price difference between one and the other rate are narrowed. As a matter of fact, we can call this, to all intents and purposes, we can say there's exchange rate unification in Nigeria today. There is one rate because the difference between one and the other is minuscule and marginal. So I think that it's an efficient move. It makes the market more transparent, and as time goes on, you will find that this difference will narrow to almost zero, and that's what will be achieved. So it's good news for now for the foreign exchange market, and we think that we'll see some stability in the market now.
Right, and talking about stability in the Forex market, we see all these moves from the CBN is trying to create, stability and, give some strength to the Naira at this point. But I'm wondering if you see a time soon where we actually really see stability, in Nigeria's FX market. We're also seeing African currencies, struggling a lot at this time, and we're seeing of de-dollarization, still drumming at this point. But when do you see stability, with the Naira and the Nigerian market?
Okay, let me say that stability doesn't mean a Naira appreciation. You can be stable at 1,500, but when you look at the purchasing power parity value of the Naira, today should be about 956 Naira to $1. When will the Naira appreciate from 1,500 to 956 or maybe 1,000 Naira to $1? This will not happen until about maybe later this year or maybe early next year. So when you start having that kind of rate, you see the Naira would appreciate maybe first and foremost about 1,200. I said 1,200, 1,300 before. It was stable there, and then gradually appreciate based on, one, the price of oil, the oil revenue, two, the non-oil exports that are coming through diaspora inflows, three, the stability and confidence, which will mean that the investments, portfolio investments, one, which is hot money, and foreign direct investment, two, and then also the fact that Nigeria begins to benefit from initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So, generally speaking, let's get one thing clear. One, a stable currency does not necessarily mean an appreciation of the currency. It is stable, the currency is stable as we speak. Now it begins to appreciate as when inflation begins to decline and interest rates have stayed high, then you begin to see it appreciate gradually. When will the appreciation begin to become manifest to everybody? I'm saying more towards the end of this year and early next year. Then you begin to see a significant appreciation, maybe up to, say, 1,300, 1,200 to 1,300 towards the end of this year. But not before inflation begins to decline. When inflation begins to decline towards 26% from the current level of 34, then you see the currency begin to appreciate at the same time.
Right, it seems we're getting used to this level above 1,000 naira to the dollar at this time. But let's look at the global energy market. Now, I expected, natural gas would receive some strong demand and maybe translate to higher prices due to heat waves we see in parts of Europe. We did see natural gas, I think, sometime in 2022. They get as high, almost $10 for natural gas, but now we're seeing it sub $3. Why are we seeing this depressed price, even with high demand for natural gas?
Well, I think normally natural gas is used for heating, but the rest of the world is not used to these high temperatures. So we're seeing that contradiction. But basically, you know that the Ukraine war actually exaggerated the demand and the demand for natural gas at that time, because there were supply constraints. But now that there are ways around it, I think the markets are now beginning to stabilize. And a lot of people that went into the forward contracts are now allowing those contracts actually mature and dissipate. So we see market stability. And that's why from excess demand, there's now kind of excess supply. And the winter is not, we still have the summer months now, June, July, August, and September, before we start seeing this. And there are so many things that are in play, both political and economic. So generally speaking, while Russia is still determined to make sure that the Ukraine war continues, the Ukrainians have got their support, financial support, and now we can see that stabilize. So I wouldn't lose too much sleep. LNG constitutes only about 14% of our total exports, which is significant. And every price increase in LNG has an effect on our income. But generally speaking, the Nigerian LNG is well positioned. They have 7 trains, and we're able to compete in that market. But what we have lost to some extent in the price of LNG, we are making up significantly the price of cocoa and other non-oil exports. So generally speaking, when you're talking about the foreign exchange market in Nigeria, and I'll come back to that, when there's some consistency in our export performance, if the terms of trade begin to improve, there was some announcement of terms of trade yesterday as well. That was for first quarter. I think that with the price of oil now at $85, $86, you just mentioned that, and the production probably creeping back up, we may see reliance or our vulnerability to LNG prices may not be as bad as it looks. So generally speaking, I think from a macroeconomic perspective, the Dangote refinery producing without any disruption, thank God that the fire was a small and contained fire. 2, that the price of diesel is at 1,100 naira a litre, and we expect aviation fuel to kick in as well and PMS to follow. Whereas OPEC quota is we are still producing below our OPEC quota, but that will increase, generally speaking. And with high interest rates and containment of inflation, things may be looking cautiously optimistic towards the end of this year.
All right, well, I guess hopes are high that inflation will moderate in the second half of 2024, definitely. We can actually feel it in the markets. Yes. Thank you so much. Always great having your perspective, Mr. Bismarck Rwani, CEO, Financial Derivatives Company.
Thank you.
All right, to the markets now. We see the Securities and Exchange Commission and Nigerian Exchange Group PLC have reaffirmed their dedication to the comprehensive digitization of the capital market, aligning with the transformation strategy outlined in the revised capital market master plan. The announcement came during a press briefing and stakeholders engagement session held at the Nigerian Exchange Group House in Lagos. Both organizations detailed collaborative efforts to develop a digital solution aimed at transforming the primary market equity capital raising process with focus on public offers and rights issues. Take a listen.
I'm talking from it.
You can't be a world-class capital market without digitization. You can't be a world-class market using papers. You can't be a world-class market not being able to capture adequate information. You can't be a world-class market with, loads of unclaimed dividends. So, for us at the SEC, and especially for this team, the new team that has been appointed by the president, we are committed to creating a market that is new, a market that is viral, a market that is full of innovation, a market that you all will be proud of, that you are part of. One way of doing that is through innovation.
We are lucky that this round of capital raising is by the banks. So we are not saying that you can't fill paper. You can fill paper as an investor, but the platform must receive digital. So the question is, how does paper go into digital? There are two different conversations. So for that man in Damaturu or Sokoto, he should fill a paper. But what we're saying is, because that man probably has a bank somewhere around him, and likely the bank in question, so if you think again, how does paper come in? People would walk to any of the receiving agents and give them a paper form. They'll walk to a broker, they'll give them paper. They'll walk to a registrar. If this was a non-bank, you walk to any of the banks around you, you have to go somewhere to get that paper. And we're saying now, if a bank is raising money, 99.9% likely that the source of that paper is the branch of that bank, for example, not the branch of another bank, just because the banks in this atmosphere are probably still trying to manage that. So it's a blessing in disguise.
All right, now to our next conversation. African businesses have struggled with cross-border payments for a long time now when conducting transactions with partners in different countries. They frequently have to change their domestic currency to the US dollar, which increases expenses and complications. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, under the AFCFTA, seeks to address this challenge. PAPS is envisioned to facilitate direct trading among African businesses using local currencies, removing the necessity for intermediary dollar conversion. Well, let's discuss this and other matters. Now, joining us for this conversation is Ola Oyetayo, is a co-founder and CEO at Averto. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
So first, let me get your reaction to the CBN directive to banks to pay diaspora remittances in Naira and not the dollar. What do you think of this?
Sure. So I think it's a good development. The directive is actually to have CBN be a participant to be able to buy dollars directly from IMTOs. So I think it's a good development because it allows that CBN should be able to supply liquidity to the market. So sometimes what IMTOs face is they want to sell into Nigeria, but their bank counterparties don't have the liquidity to settle on time. So by CBN also being able to participate as a Naira seller for hard currency from IMTOs, I think is a good development for IMTOs and for the remittance market in Nigeria in general.
But do you think those receiving these remittances would be happy with this development?
Yes. So I think there are two things here. One is the directive to settle in Nigerian Naira. And then the other is the confirmation of CBN being a participant in the markets, being able to buy Naira from IMTOs, and beneficiaries of remittance flows from the research we have done, actually prefer to be paid in local currency, mostly because over time, the requirement for and the means in which remittance has been disbursed has become more digital. If you're a beneficiary of a remittance from someone abroad, you would actually prefer if that money gets into your Nigerian bank account in Nigerian naira, so you can use it for whatever you want to use it for, whether it's to pay medical bills, settle domestic outstanding liabilities. If it's in hard currency, it works in a market where you actually need to go into a bank and get cash, or the money comes into your domiciliary account. You have to remember that if you receive it in hard currency, you would still have to convert into Nigerian naira, because obviously Nigeria is not a dollar economy, as we all know. So removing that requirement to convert on behalf of the beneficiary from hard currency to naira is a good thing. So I would say that it's actually not a bad thing to say that you should settle diaspora remittances in the local currency, which is Nigerian naira.
Right. I guess for me, anything that increases demand for naira, I'm down with that. But let's look at trade now. Can you walk us through the specific features or functionalities that empower businesses to receive and transfer payments efficiently across Africa, and that's using local currencies?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we do here at Veto, and I think you referenced perhaps earlier as well, one of the things we've done is we've built a platform that helps for interoperability between African currencies. It is so weird that Africa, 54 countries, about 47 different currencies across those countries. Typically, when businesses trade in Africa, they actually trade in US dollars. So if I'm a Nigerian business and I need to buy goods from South Africa, my South African supplier would most likely quote me in US dollars and issue me an invoice in US dollars. It's estimated that about 92% of intra-Africa trade is actually domiciled in US dollars. And if you think about that is actually weird. If you're in the UK and you want to make payments, you can convert between pounds and dollars to the US. But if you want to make a payment to Europe, you're not going to do it through dollars. You're going to do it through euros. So it's very weird that African businesses need to transact through the dollar. What we've done at Veto is to build a platform that actually help you convert a local African currency in markets that we operate in into another local African currency. So it helps facilitate trade directly between those countries, which also means that you do not need to transact through the US dollars to be able to make payments for goods and services abroad. And if we think about all the aims of PAPS as a settlement system and the Africa Free Trade Agreement as well, if you want to stimulate trade between African countries, the first thing you need to do is to lower the barriers to entry when it comes to currency conversion and allow those countries to be able to transact with each other in their local currencies. And that's what we aim to do primarily at Veto with respect to what we're doing with our Africa operations.
All right, let's look at the issue of, you talk about trying to trade in other currencies at this time. So we're hearing the drums of de-dollarization at this time. We've also heard reports about the Saudi Arabia petrodollar agreement with the U.S. Not being renewed at this time. The reports of that, some say it's fake news at this time. But is the de-dollarization process happening faster than expected, in your opinion?
Very, very good question. So it's not happening faster than expected. I think the dollar is still the world's reserve currency. Most goods and extractive, commodities are still priced in dollars. The minute we stop having, say, fossil fuels as the world's primary energy component, then you can say that maybe the dollar, the de-dollarization might be expedited. But at the moment, the world would still price oil in US dollars, for example, as the benchmark, and other goods and commodities as well. What we're seeing, especially with obviously geopolitical tensions across the world, is what I'll call isolated cases of specific countries choosing to reduce their exposure to the US dollars. So China is a good example. Russia is another good example with the recent sanctions post the war they've had in Ukraine. And I would see that as a trend that continues. But I would say that de-dollarization is not happening as fast as everyone thinks. But it definitely is a trend that is taking shape and is happening in specific spots across the world.
All right, let's look at another issue that with multinationals. We've seen trap funds has long been a hurdle, for most of these multinationals operating in Africa, leading to some exits in some markets. How do you think this challenge can be permanently resolved?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just to isolate that to Nigeria, because I think that in most of these instances, these are actually multinationals operating in Nigeria, and that some of them have been doing this for a few decades, choosing to kind of exit from the country. I would actually say that over the last 7 or 8 months, a lot of the reforms and policy work being done by the current central bank administration has actually started bearing fruits. So now we have, I would say, a unified exchange rate within the country. So give or take between what you might call the parallel market and the official market, which is now NAFEM, there might be a 10 to 20 naira difference, but there is somewhat a unified exchange rate. And there's also a lot more liquidity in the markets as well. So genuine business requirements for hard currency in order to repatriate funds outside of the country. I believe that there's a lot more liquidity over the last 7, 8 months that there's been over the past few years. So I would actually argue that right now, if you're a multinational with Nigerian naira that you need to repatriate abroad, you actually have ample liquidity to be able to do that over a period of time. So you might not be able to, if you want to move $20 million, perhaps you can't do it in a day through NAFEM. But over a week, you should be able to. So there definitely is a lot more liquidity in the market. And also what's more important is that the rate has somewhat unified. So you can actually maybe plan over a week or two. You would actually be able to get your money out, which is a very, very good development, which we didn't have in the past, because prior to this, there was an official rate, which was way off the kind of market rate. And then you sat on a queue with the central bank trying to get your money out at the official rate, which obviously wasn't sort of something that you could do. But now with the unified rate and the fact that there's the autonomous foreign exchange market, which is well functioning, and there's a lot more liquidity in that market, I would say that the instances of multinationals talking about trap funds should actually reduce. Obviously, if you've made your investment in the country in US dollars at 500 naira to $1, and it's now 1,500 to $1, then obviously that's not great from a multinational.
Right. Well, we need as much liquidity, definitely at this time. Thank you so much. Great having your perspective, Mr. Olaoyetayo. He's the co-founder and CEO at Virtual. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's it from me on Business Morning. We'll give you a summary of the stock market close later on and the FX market. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. I hand things over now to the Sunrise Daily team.
I'm here with Malam Nasir El-Rufai to file an application to enforce his fundamental rights. As we're all aware, the Kaduna State House of Assembly set up an ad hoc committee to investigate loan and other activities of the former administration. A lot of witnesses were called, and they took they did hearing and they admitted a lot of documents. But strangely, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, who apparently was the target of the investigative committee, was never invited. The law is very clear. Everybody deserves to be given a hearing. The right to fair hearing is a natural right that inures into every human being. Malam Nasir El-Rufai was a lot of allegations were made against him. He was not given a hearing at all. As a law-abiding citizen who believes in the rule of law and who believes that when there are infractions, you need to approach the court, he's here today before the Federal Court to enforce his right that every infraction they alleged, he was not given an opportunity to sit his own side of the story. And the law is clear about it. Any proceeding, be it court or quasi-tribunal, that he didn't give the parties concerned a hearing, the whole proceeding is void ab initio. And that's where we're here.
All right, so good morning, Laulu. Thank you for coming on.
Good morning.
There's certainly a lot going on, a lot more behind the scenes about all of these things that is not probably out there in the public. Who would have thought that, you know, both parties would be going at each other? And so for you, what do you think is going on?
Well, I mean, just like you said, quite a lot of dimensions to this story. The first one that I would like to say is that El-Rufai is in trouble, clearly. And the second thing is that, so this idea of people unpicking and imposing their successors, after all, it's not something that really guarantees whatever it is that those people want to have. And then the other thing to say is that, look, the man has a right to fair hearing, and he should get it. But back to my first point, if you see El-Rufai going to court, so clearly all the pretensions that, this is not a big deal, he can get over it. Now, this is the clearest indication that he himself knows that there is I would say a clear attempt to bring him, to reduce his political weight and cause him a bit of trouble.
That for this to be going on, it suggests that, of course there's a build-up, but we don't know, we can't exactly place what could they have been, when, what are they trying to, because something, it might not just be, well, maybe largely reducing, as you said, what is political, whatever they want to do. And then politicians being who they are, they're always planning for the next.
Yeah.
So they feel some persons may be a challenge to me, look, I'd rather just, but the tricky thing about all of this, when they are being picked, they play along. Yeah. They seem to be, oh yeah, this is good. Because usually there are several people who, if they had left them to, they might not have gotten that ticket.
Absolutely.
They had agreements, different governors before their successors or predecessors. Both of them usually have agreements. And then at the last minute, when they get into office, you see a lot of them change. There are many who also had that agreement today, and it's working, who are current governors.
Right, true.
But some are not working.
True.
So some of them may tell you, it's not that it's inherently bad, because in some cases it might have worked. But of course, we can't get 100%.
Yeah. Well, I think what we should try to get out of all of this is the enlargement of the democratic space. To say that, look, let us have a proper internal party democracy where candidates who go for public office go through the right process, not an imposition, not a situation where if I'm governor, I will be the one to pick the governor. And I have to say this, I think it's President Olusegun Obasanjo that really made this a big problem. And that's why, in spite of all of his credits, we have to continue to remind him that he is responsible for some of the poor political leadership that we see being exhibited in this country. There's a reason why there's a political party. Look, we've had political leaders in this country, the kinds of Sadana, the kind of Obafemi Awolowo. They didn't do stuff like this. There's a reason,
Is it that people have no choice? Because after maybe a governor picks somebody, backs the person emerges as the candidate of the party, the person still has to go for elections. So the person goes for elections and wins. Right. But at different stages, there are options for the people. Yeah. So is it a question of weak electorate?
Well, we have to understand the role that internal party democracy plays in the whole idea of representative democracy. We can't have a democracy if we don't have effective political party system. It's as simple as that. It starts from the party. Even where you have one party state, it is still the party. the way and manner they run political parties in Nigeria these days, especially since 2003 or thereabout, up to now, clearly shows that it's not about the party, it's about the person that has emerged as president or has emerged as governor, and they call the shots. You are right. It still comes down to the electorate. But you have a dominant party, you have a ruling party, you know, and for the most part, you know, it's whoever is the candidate of the ruling party that is the front runner. Yes, of course, we've had situations where people vote. I mean, look at what happened in 2015. Jonathan lost the election and stuff. So we've seen a few. But for the most part, we are dealing with a situation where governors and presidents are becoming dictators. They are becoming dictatorial.
Is it that the people are getting weaker? The electorate are getting weaker?
No, the party system is what is getting weaker. The electorate, by the time you present a candidate, you know, it's really almost a done
deal.
Yeah,
but if you're a ruling party in a state, right, and the party comes up with a candidate, you have other candidates in other political parties. So is it the electorate cannot say, well, we've seen how you chose this person, you back the person is your candidate. We will now tell you that no, we don't like how your internal democracy went by voting against your candidate.
Well, the thing is that the matter doesn't rise to that level for the people, because the people really wouldn't pay too much attention to that. They would rather look at, okay, which party has the record.
Isn't that a problem if we don't recognize that?
No, well, you have to scale it. You have to scale it. So if a party, if for instance, if Rufai is deemed to have done very well, an APC governor in Kaduna, you know, controls a lot of the levers there, the chances of the candidate of APC winning are clearer. I mean, better than any other party, which is what happened in the election. So I'm not saying that the people shouldn't take more interest, but I'm just saying that, look, it's almost a fait accompli. By the time the parties determine who the candidate is, it's almost a fait accompli. And that is why we need to keep talking about party democracy. There must be internal democracy in the parties. You know, we don't have that now.
Well, while I agree with you that the parties need to effect more internal democracy, I'm really trying to see how it relates to this conversation now about former Governor El Rufai going to court. What is the connection?
Well, no, I mean, we raised the question that is in trouble, and I said, look, part of what we are seeing here is the fact that, look, the fact that you picked your successor is not a guarantee that you won't have problem, you know, which is one of the reasons why many of them do this. They say, okay, look, I'm leaving, let me determine who is going to come and take my stand so that, you know, I can have a restful retirement. Guess what? It's not happening for Wike. It's not happening for Rufai. Who knows who's next?
Well, it is interesting that is this. Really, Kaduna is such a surprise because the current governor and the former governor really seem to be best buddies, and it wasn't like they were best buddies in terms of master-servant kind of relationship. It seemed like they were colleagues more or less. It's just that one was a governor, the other was a senator, and one was even the current governor. Was even mentoring the children of the former governor. So it's a total surprise in terms of what has really happened, and it's unclear to the generality of the public, what precisely could have gone wrong. But in terms of internal democracy, which you have spoken of, in a country where money is still a major decider, so let's take a look at what is happening, or what happened with the PDP presidential primaries, where there was really no authority figure to say this is the person who we're going to impose on the party, and all of them had to go to the polls by themselves, who the delegates, etc. We saw how money was such a major factor. In those kinds of circumstances, would you say that it would have been better, assuming there was an authority figure who would say, look, like Obasanjo would always say he tried to do. What he tried to do was spare the party the problems of going through people who had the most money at that point in time in 2007 when he was looking for a successor.
It was just a red herring. I mean, and we all knew afterward that wasn't what the story was all about. Obasanjo.
You said afterwards, but at that point in time, do you think that if the primaries had, I'm not making any excuses for him, but this is our reality. This is where we currently are. That when we're doing primaries in any single situation, it would seem that those who have the deepest pockets are the ones who carry the day. In a place where we're looking for a true democracy, it cannot be that we're looking to bribe delegates.
It's because the party have permitted that kind of system to prevail. And it goes back to the same point, because who we throw in, who has the biggest pocket? It's the guy that is in government, that is still the governor or the president.
Government funds, public funds.
Yeah, you know, so it still goes back to that idea. And the responsibility is on the political leaders. Look, I mean, I'm sorry to bring this in. Tomorrow, I'm talking with Odii on Inside Sources. And one of the things that he said to me that was quite shocking was that when he was in the cabinet of Shagari, anytime Adisa Kinoye, the party chairman, calls a meeting, even though FEC is going on, the president will stop FEC to go and pick the call. That is when the political parties were really the real things. People run on the platform of the political parties. And then they get there, they become authoritarian, they become dictatorial. We have to deal with that problem. And that is what has caused Rufai this challenge that he has to deal with. To your point, you know, Ubasani and Rufai were very close. As a matter of fact, we know that Rufai brought Ubasani to deal with Shehu Sani. You know the story. It was his preference, you know. So you wouldn't expect this kind of thing to happen. But the lesson is this. So don't ever think that you got it all covered. Let's do the proper thing. Let the parties be the parties. We run on the platform of the party. In fact, the Supreme Court has ruled in the case of Amechi, you know, that it's actually the party. You remember how Amechi became governor? You know, it said, well, if PDP won, even though he wasn't the one on the ticket, since the ticket belonged to him in the primaries, he should be the governor. So it's really about the party, but the party system has been completely messed up.
You know, when that generation speak about certain things, I wonder what to make of it, because this is the same generation that they went to school on scholarship in this country. They schooled in different parts of the world. The Naira was very strong. They had all kinds of scholarship. The country was working for them. Many of them are largely still in power today.
Yeah.
And so if they can't get certain things right, yeah, they don't want to quit. That reminds me of Kenya. For instance, I mean, when we speak about the people got their voices heard. Big time. The president had to backtrack and withdraw the finance bill. So suddenly lessons for Nigerian young folks to say, all the people here to say, look, it's not over. In fact, it wasn't even Uhuru for Mr. Ruto.
Exactly. And I think that we also have that potential under this administration. I've said this before, you know, whenever I get the opportunity. This is our clearest chance to enlarge the democratic space under a president such as Tinubu. I'm telling you, it's the best chance that we have. You know, so he doesn't have any military baggage. He's not known to be a dictator, not known, you know, and he will most likely, you know, and then comparatively, Jonathan too, he will most likely, you know, go the way of the people if the point is well made, clearly, you know, and that was what happened in Kenya. I think the guy saw it. I mean, he made a very interesting speech and said that, look, this is the reason why we needed to raise this kind of money. You know, we reduced it because of the protest, but we need the money. We have a debt situation. We have to increase our revenue and everything. And after I said that, but because you guys don't want it done this way, guess what? We are pulling back. Anytime the people speak, and they speak effectively, the leadership has no option. The problem that we have is that a lot of the protests that we've had in the past, except answers, most of them are just sponsored. The political interest, we raise one point here, the counter will come, and so we lose the power, the potency of the efficacy of the people's voice. What has happened in Kenya is that the people have shown that their voice is strong, and the leaders couldn't resist it.
You know, while it is, I mean, everybody who knows that anything has got a pro also has a con.
True.
And that sometimes democracy can be like a double-edged sword.
True.
I do not know how it is that we're thinking of the downsides, because there are people who have asked the question, are the people always right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the people are not always right. Yeah. And democracy is not to make the people always right. But democracy is about what the people want. Look at what happened in Brexit. Look, I mean, everybody now basically knows now that Brexit was a, was a bad idea. Error, But hey, that's what the leaders proposed to the people, and they got their imagination captured, and then see where we are today. It's the same thing that happened in this country in 2015. People wanted change, and we saw in President Buhari, this is the one that captures the change. Hey, where are we today? But the point is that, so we've learned lessons, we've seen what was done wrong, and then we can go forward. So yeah, people will not always be right, and that's why you have a constitution. So the constitution is there to guide even the people. It shows the limitation of the people, it shows the limitation of the leaders, and it shows the aspiration of a nation.
Well, I'm sure Ayo will have questions for you. Ayo.
Well, thank you, Mokwe. We're still talking about the people, but this time around, it's about this outbreak of cholera. It would seem like government officials, again, are literally saying that the reason we're having the kind of outbreak that we're having is because of the people. I mean, some indiscipline on our parts, environmental issues, contaminated water, generally environmental indiscipline and all of that. So that's on the one hand, the place of the people. But then one also asks, one also wonders, I mean, you are in the media as well. Do you completely agree, given that over the years, people perhaps had actually gotten used to the fact that there are local government environmental officers who come around from time to time?
I didn't get the question. Okay, well, I mean, so you are right if we say that the people have to be, they have to pay more attention to their sanitation and hygiene. That is perfectly right. But I think, this cholera, and some public health experts have even described it as is the disease of poverty. Okay, so it reminds us of the need in our country specifically to deal with the problem of poverty. Now, I don't think that in many instances people who have a choice will take some of those, we rather want to live in some of those conditions. I think there was a video that was even, that went viral last week of a student of, undergraduate student of the University of Lagos, and they showed the kind of, waterlogged apartment where she had to stay. She doesn't have a choice and stuff like that. There are conditions, that produces the diseases, poverty-based conditions. And that is why, as a people and our government, the problem of poverty has to be a major priority. Or we can say that differently. Human capital development has to be our priority. Yes, it's important to do infrastructure. It's important to fix the roads and build the bridges so that we can find our way. But the most important assignment that we have when we are in government, for those who make the course, is that we need to deal with the human condition. It's often said in my language that once you remove poverty out of misery, misery is gone. So this cholera thing is another reminder that indeed we have to confront the problem of poverty more decisively in our country.
Leading to another question, Mr. Akonde. So we had a conversation earlier in the week with the DG of LASEPA in Lagos. So one of the things that he made us realize is, well, he governs an environmental protection agency in Lagos, but he also emphasized something, that this cholera thing that you've talked about, of course, poverty is quite a significant one, but he also mentioned the fact that it is more of an environmental challenge than a health challenge. You've spoken to the living conditions of people and all of that, but then there is also the place for local government administrations. The environmental officers that I talked about usually come from the local government level. So one wonders, because another issue that has come up around that is the fact that we seem to have transited from preventive medicine to curative medicine, and preventing medicine is all about the environment. So if we have let down our guards over the years, how do we pick up these guards? Because one other thing that the DG of the NCDC mentioned is that this is an annual wave, and it is something that we know is going to happen. Is it too difficult for us to get ahead of it?
It is not, and thank you, for the opportunity to come back to that issue of the local government. So it's one of the reasons why we complain, all of us, even inside and outside, that the local governments are no longer in place. Because when we used to have the environmental stuff, even though it was under the military that they started it, but it was the local government officials that supervised it, that facilitated it. So we need to bring the conversation around, what I hope will be the revamping of the local government administration, so that we understand that some of these things are best dealt with initially to make it preventive from the local government level. These are the kinds of things that we need an active, effective local government administration in this country for, to deal with people at the very at the grassroots. Okay, so if you have a situation in many parts of the country where local government don't exist, the state government is a little bit too distant to address some of these issues. And I'm not saying that there aren't situations where they try to. I think in Lagos they even the state government does a better job in terms of environmental issues, but the population is quite large, and quite diverse, that it will require a closer governmental tier to sort this matter and sort it out effectively. So to your question, we can deal with it. We can increase awareness of our people, but having an effective local government administration is going to be a big lifter, out of what seems to be this morass.
That sounds, Mr. Akonde, you may also want to consider how we pay them. One of the considerations out there is, look, I think it was earlier in the week on the morning brief, Dr. Alera Roberts spoke about this issue that you mentioned. And she just said, look, how much are you paying these local government officials to do the kind of work that you're expecting them to do? Leading them to the issue of the minimum wage. You know what the federal government has decided now. Look, we need to have better consultations with governors on this matter. So the memo for the minimum wage has been suspended for now, withdrawn from consideration at the FEC level. What do you make of that? What are your expectations? What kind of aspiration do you have? We understand that that meeting between the president and the governors is going to happen real soon.
The sense I get, Ayo, is that the federal government is ready, able, and willing to pay a certain figure. You remember, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when the president summoned the coordinating minister of the economy, and over this matter to crunch the figures for him. It was leaked. The information was leaked to the press that the federal government could do 105,000. So my gut feeling is that the federal government is ready to do that, but they have to convince, especially state governors, and I guess the organized private sector. And I think the president possibly wanted to take a situation where he can, get involved personally to try and sort this matter. And that seems to be what the problem is. And I think, it's not too much to wait another week or so, to let the president sort that out. And I think also we should encourage the governors. Look, there's no reason why governors should not be able to pay something, and I don't think that, we should impose it on the governors because it's a federal system. But because the governors themselves joined to be part of this collective bargaining, they themselves have put a question mark on that federal system. So if governors agree to come and negotiate with the workers at the federal level, then, they have made themselves to be open to whatever it is that is agreed. But I guess even in states where they can't pay whatever is the national minimum wage, they should try to come as close as possible to the minimum wage. The last point is that, look, let's remind the president that he said that he will give a living wage. We think he's going to do it, but let's encourage him, please, don't give up. Give Nigerian workers a living wage.
Lala, thank you for coming on this morning. We've got some messages. This is coming from Yomi D411. He says, an important part of showing leadership is to be more committed to speaking honestly than receiving the approval of others. I appreciate El Rufai's response to Kaduna allegations. Loyalty apart, leaders have to be ready to be tried, then trusted again and again.
And this one is from additional. Oluwafemi says, Nafdac is also a part of the problems on the bottleneck of getting certification. That's addressed to the DG SMEDAN now. It says to get Nafdac certification is not easy, but I would suggest that that's Nafdac, should publish the process on their website of how small businesses can get certification for their products.
So there you go. Thank you all for your messages. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Usol. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maope Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makine. Have a wonderful day.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. Do you find it difficult to make it to the gym? You want to improve your overall health, but don't know where and how to start? SportX Digital Compact Treadmill. The compact foldable treadmill that makes being active and losing weight fast and easy. Just unfold it and walk, jog, or run. And when you're done, just fold it and store it away.